All right, all right, all right. What's up, folks? What's happening? What's happening? Let's tap into some more of this forgotten history, this history that the clowns of America, who always are trying to rewrite this revisionist history that goes on, this whitewashing and white lining of history. But we won't let that happen as we find interest in some of the past that no longer exists today, and going into one of America's greatest sports. And this happened to be no other than that of horse racing, Kentucky Derby racing. But I remember my early times of going to races, which is an unusual thing for a kid from Los Angeles, especially born in the 80s, a West Coast black, we like to call over here. But going to horse races with moms, who moms is from the South, and I wonder if that played a part in her interest in horse racing, or was that something that was a big thing amongst older generations. But we'll go where currently where the Rams Stadium is, the location of the Rams Stadium, but back in the days like in the 80s, but way before that, Hollywood Park was situated there, and Hollywood Park was one of the major racetracks in this horse racing circuit and stuff. But so we used to go there. I always had an interest in the horse racing. I always thought it was cool with seeing that people got to ride these horses and race them around the track. So as a kid going there, be like, man, that's what I want to do. That was always one of the professions that I wanted to do. But then we start hearing like how small you had to be as a jockey. You couldn't be of a normal height. But as a kid, I used to always be like, man, I hope I don't grow. I want to be a racing jockey because it looked real cool to see you flying around the track on some fast horses. And the fact that people were able to win money off of this stuff. But what was very noticeable then to me was the fact that it wasn't a black jockey out there. I don't think I remember seeing a single jockey of color out there on that track. And a lot of the jockeys looked like they were foreigners. They looked like white folks from out of other countries, which I believe. And I also remember during this phase in the 90s and all that stuff, we used to have major incidents in horse racing where I think horse jockeys have been killed. There's been jockeys who've been paralyzed or badly injured during falls on the track. But then you come to find out when you look at the situation of what started to phase out the black jockey was these sort of incidents where they try to rough these damn riders, these black riders, and pin them against the gates and try to make things dangerous, whipping them and hitting their horses and stuff like that. And you'll hear in some of the stories where owners of horses, felt, kind of were pressured to removing these guys up off of these horses. But some of the most accomplished jockeys have been that of the black jockey, and especially in the early phases of horse racing in the early 1800s. Because you gotta even think, when you look at the Kentucky Derby, this shit begins like a few years after the Civil Wars ended. So, and I wonder how many of these black cats is probably even some of the people that are out there murking these fools out on that battlefield. So we're gonna check this out. So let's check this out. It says among thoroughbred stake races said they are the oldest that have been held annually. All right, so the Kentucky Derby has a 150-year history. 150-year history. Wow, what an amazing thing. So I want to go into some of this history on some of our famed jockeys. But let me read some of the history on the Kentucky Derby. So it will only be a right thing to do is to read history on the Kentucky Derby. So in 1872, Colonel Meriwether Lewis Clark Jr. So it's a military officer who probably has his attachments to the Civil War as well. So this is Colonel Meriwether Lewis Clark Jr.'s grandson, William Clark, of the Lewis and Clark expedition. Says a Lewis and Clark expedition traveled to England, visiting Epsons in Surrey. Says where the Derby had been running annually since the 1780s. Says from there, Clark went on to Paris, France. Says where a group of racing enthusiasts had formed the French Jockey Club in 1863. They had organized a Grand Prix de Paris at the Longchamp, which at the time was the greatest race in France. Returning home to Kentucky, Clark organized the Louisville Jockey Club to raise money for for building quality racing facilities just outside the city. The track would soon become known as Churchill Downs, named for John and Henry Churchill, who provided the land for the racetrack. Says the naming went official in 1937. So that's the history of where you hear Churchill Downs. All these people flood into Kentucky on an annual basis. They come in dressed in some of the Southern style of dress and all that other stuff, style that I will always reject. Fuck they style of dressing. But let me say what's up to some of y'all. Now, let me continue going. I'll let more people roll in, and I'll get in the comments. I want to hear some of the sucker comments. We already know you're going to get the typical white guys who love to cry about history. Over here, we bring y'all the critical race theory to make you cry like hoes. So this is a jockey will also feature as well. This would be the last jockey to win in the Kentucky Derby. He was the last jockey right before they began to blackball the black jockeys. So you see where they have this jockey club here. So whites later down the line in the turn of the century, in the early 1900s, will form this jockey club, unionize, and force blacks up out of there to where they wouldn't even give the blacks license to even race horses. That's the type of ill shit amongst these people inside this nation. And then the fact that you also had this jockey who end up, let me highlight this dude here, who was, blackballed and not allowed to race here. He told these white folks in here, like, F y'all. I'm going to leave here and go where a bunch of y'all parents is from. I'm going to go over to fucking Russia, and I'm going to become a super dominant jockey over there. Win all sorts of races over in there. Let's continue on. And there was something I was reading. I got to get into that because there was something about the brilliance of black jockeys that dates pre-slave, that they were great horse riders. Let me see. Let me type that in. Great. Yeah, from West Africa. So I don't know how true that was. And I was hearing the guy in a video I was watching speak on that. So I want to speak on that, and thinking that if their great horsemanship comes from being from over there. So it does says West Africa has a rich tradition and exceptional horse riding, known for their skills in various equestrian disciplines. So that probably is very, very true. Senegal, Mali, Nigeria. So there is some truth to that. So I'm going to definitely pull this up and speak on that. Is that what made blacks such great riders, even coming here in America, and their understanding of the horse? Could there be some great history to that? All right, so continuing on this history, says, let me go down here. Let me go on this history with black folks in here, because they even cover up the history of some of the earliest racers. Because in one of the article that I ended up picking up on this topic, that throughout the 1800s, so from 1875 to when they started to ban the black jockey, of the 28, would it be 28 Kentucky Derbies, 15 of them had been won by black jockeys. And the black jockeys weren't the one to win it. They were placed high in the rankings as far as where they finished at. So those are some of the things that are highlighted in this. And we start seeing where whites start to kind of migrate to the sport as they start seeing the black riders become very wealthy in the sport. The black riders became very, very wealthy. Then you start having this integration of whites coming in there, and then the whites becoming very upset, very angry, formulating some plot to force these guys up out of here, creating the unions that kept blacks from having the ability to obtain licenses to compete. And then horse racing became an all-white sport. It wasn't even a thing about being predominantly white. That shit became an all-white sport. And like I said, as a kid, when looking at how cool that horse racing shit was, not seeing a goddamn black cat out there. And that didn't really hit my mind until I get a little bit older, of the fact that you don't see any blacks out there. So let me go into one of the most prolific horse racers in history, and that's going to be Isaac Murphy, who is a guy who, matter of fact, he has a statue. Matter of fact, they have done a tribute to this guy. And matter of fact, I think he's buried on the grounds of of Churchill Downs. So he's buried in front of the where the Kentucky Derby is held at at a museum they show here. And the other thing that they say is wrong, because there's even some white folks who find that it's wrong, that his grave and his wife's grave have been separated. So this is a dude who adored his wife, loved the hell out of his wife. They were buried on the same plot. They removed his body, took his body over to Kentucky here at the Churchill Downs or on the grounds there, and left his wife at an unknown gravesite or unmarked gravesite. And some people were having issues with that, and there's a fight to kind of get to a fight to have her placed there in the same location as her husband. So Isaac Murphy, so one of the most prolific guys, life very short. So from January 6, 1861, passing away February 16th, so a month after his birthday of 1896. Let me see what happened with his death. Let me go down to his death real quick. So he died of heart failure. Who knows? Probably, we know dudes smoked a lot back then, maybe stress. All this stuff. Says, while his funeral was attended by more than 500 people, 500 members of the community, over time, his unmarked grave in the African Cemetery number 2. So that's the cemetery they were buried at. Let's click in the African Cemetery. This is right here this is Lexington. Yeah, there it is, Lexington. So African Cemetery number 2 is also known as the Cemetery of the Union Benevolent Society. Is a historic burial site located in Lexington, Kentucky. The first burials occurred on the property as early as 1820. Says the Colored People Union's Benevolent Society number 2 purchased the property for use as a cemetery in 1869. The last burial in the cemetery took place in 1974. In 1889, 300 bodies were moved from the Presbyterian Cemetery on Limestone Street to the African Cemetery number 2 under the supervision of C.O.H. Thomas. 1973, Lexington city government took control of the cemetery. In 1979, the African Cemetery number 2 Incorporated was organized to save the cemetery. In June 2003, a Kentucky Historic Highway marker was placed on the site. The cemetery was added to the National Register of Historic Places. This is a 7.7 acre cemetery, contains more than 5,000 graves, of which 1,200 are identified, fewer than 600 being recognized with markers. So this location for where blacks were buried here. So this also marks some of the darkest periods in America with segregation and deep racism that, punk ass bitches can't erase that shit about what America is, about what its history is. Whether you cry makes you don't feel comfortable, fuck what your whole ass feelings is. If you fake, then you fake. And I think you need to take that up with God and maybe pray to him that you stop being fake and a crybaby. Because history is what it is, and history should be taught what it is. And that goes from black, whites, and immigrants. And then it says during the 1960s, says F.B. Boris Jr. says university. Now, let me pass all this stuff. I want to go into his history. Says Murphy was reinterred at the old Man of War burial site. Says with the building of the Kentucky Horse Park, says his remains were moved to the burial, says to be buried again next to Men of War at the entrance of the park. According to his own calculations, Murphy won 628 of his 1,400 starts, a 44% victory rate, says that has never been equaled. And a record about which Hall of Fame jockey Eddie Arcaro, this is a white guy, said there is no chance that his record of winning will ever be surpassed. By later calculations and incomplete records, his record stands at 530 wins and 1,500 rides, or 1,538 rides, which still makes his win rate 34%. In 1955, Murphy was inducted into the Jockey Hall of Fame in Saratoga, New York, which is also a racetrack that has deep history of black dominance at this racetrack, and they don't do anything in the history of this racetrack, or the people who oversee this or oversee the history of this track. They speak nothing of it. In 1940, he was honored with one of the 33, dioramas feature. Let me see. A diorama says a replica of a scene. It says featured at the American Negro Expedition in Chicago. Since 1995, says the National Turf Riders Association has given the Isaac Murphy Award to jockeys with the highest winning percentage for the year in North American racing. All right, so let's go back up to his story of this great guy, Hall of Famer, first guy inducted into the American Racing Hall of Fame. Says was an American Hall of Famer, considered one of the greatest riders in American thoroughbred horse racing history. He won 3 runnings of the Kentucky Derby and was the first jockey to be inducted into the National Museum Racing Hall of Fame, says in his creation. And I think he is the first person to win the Kentucky Derby ever. So I think he ended up being the first guy when in the what would you call it? Not the induction, but the debut of the Kentucky Derby. He ends up being the first winner of it and shit. I think that's him. Isaac Murphy says was born into slavery, says in January 1961. That's a crazy thing when you look at this. This guy born into slavery. He's from Clark County, which is a county that Las Vegas is in as well, but he's in Clark County, Kentucky. Says his mother, America. Says America. They named his mother after America. Ain't that some crazy shit? You gotta love history, man. Is cold looking back at this. So his mother, who was probably born a slave, either her parents did this or the people owned them, named them after this country. They must have adored this little girl or something. His mother, America Murphy, says worked as a house slave, and she worked inside the house. So she might have, who knows, she might have been the damn offspring of the damn plantation owner. Says on the Pleasant Green farm, says owned by David Tanner, says until the fall of 1864. Says until 1864, when the blacks out there on that field, probably his parents got the blast in these damn chumps from up there and ending slavery, ultimately ending slavery in this country. Says until the fall of 1864, says when records indicate that she became a refugee at the Union Army Depot in Camp Nelson. Isaac's father's Jerry had escaped from bondage and enlisted. Always right with your boy Reggie motherfucking Genius Owens, homie. So his father enlisted in 114 U.S. colored troops at Camp Nelson in the summer of 1864. Says and would fight in some of the most decisive battles in 1865. Jerry died says at a Confederate prisoner of war camp. So his father ended up being ultimately killed by these scumbags, better known as Confederates and hoes who wear rebel flags. Probably like Mark Sumner's in the family. Oh no, Mark Sumner's family wasn't even here. They didn't get here until airplanes and shit were invented. So in 1867, American Isaac moved in with family friend Eli Jordan, says a man who had become one of the most important figures in Isaac's life. Eli was a prominent horse trainer, says, who worked for the Williams and Oney stable. And according to historian Palom McDaniels, Isaac may have been the son of Eli, says may have been the son Eli never had, says, and he impressed on the boy the definition of manhood, says the importance of prudence and honesty, says, and the benefits of being consistent in all things. Consistency is definitely an attribute that has to be driven into young dudes, and it's and you have to push for it and move motherfuckers who think that you're an angry guy for pushing or pushing a kid to strive for that shit. We gotta get women to break out of that shit. I thinking some dude is a mean or angry person when they're trying to push a kid, and some dudes gotta learn how to control that shit. Let kids know what you're doing with the when you have to go into coaching mode or life lessons and shit. So that made this dude a greater guy. Let me see. Salvatore versus Tane. What is this? Says among the most famous races of Murphy's career was a match race at Sheepshead, or how you say this, Sheepshead Bay on June 25th, 1890. says at the height of his career, Murphy rose Salvatore to a dead-end heat victory over Tenney. Says in his rival jockey, Edward Snappy Garrison. The race was considered to be one of the most thrilling races of all times, which they need to make a movie and cut that Seabiscuit shit out. Turn this into a summer thriller, a summer hit, to surpass that Seabiscuit music. Make a movie on this one. Tyler Perry, where you at? So the race was considered to be one of the most thrilling races of all time, says in which the most dominant black jockey squared off against one of the most dominant white jockeys head to head. The race is also notable, says it's notable for being credited with the first instance of a photo finish, says which was taken by photographer John C. Hemmett. And this is also during with these races to where race didn't really play that much of a factor amongst how people put their money up, who they betted on. You know, some of them harbored prejudice. I mean, you coming out the Civil War. You coming out the Civil War where blacks in there murking these white folks. But when it comes to even a bigot, the one thing that is even king amongst a bigot's prejudice is that green. I wonder what the money was. It probably wasn't no Lincoln and none of that shit. Well, they was probably trading slave dollars and shit. trading slavery dollars. So here's a poisoning controversy. They see if they poison him or a horse. So on August 26, 1890, at the Monmouth Handicap, says Murphy fell off his horse. Firenze, says after crossing the finish line in last place. Given that Murphy and Firenze had been the presumed favorites, along with long-standing rumors about Murphy's ritual of drinking champagne before races, stories began to circulate that he had been racing drunk. Following the incident, he was suspended from racing pending investigation. Murphy strongly refuted the claims, maintaining that he had been drugged, given his long-standing reputation as a clean rider. Some members of the press defended the jockey. Why did my thing get? Hold on, let me make sure my audio good. Okay, we're good. So they defended the jockey, says, and called the accusations unfounded. Further adding to the scandal, says it was found that bettors had uncharacteristically wagered heavily against Firenze. Firenze, how do you say this horse's name? Says betting instead on William Lakeland. Says T-Tray as the race drew near. Says among those betting, T-Tray says was a notable race plunger. Dave Johnson says who had lost $25,000 or equivalent to $750,000 in today's or whenever this article, pretty sure it's 2003 or probably even currently, which would have been $750,000 is a rich dude. Says betting against Murphy on Salvatore earlier that year. Says for the rest of his life, Murphy maintained that he had been poisoned. Says, and although he would race again, the accusations of drunkenness tainted his career. So we'll move on past him. And he's still viewed as one of the most prolific, one of the greatest horse riders in the history of this sport. So that was Isaac Murphy, who ended up passing away as a result of heart failure. So, these are some great dudes. And imagine what they had to endure during this time period, man. These are some real strong stand-up dudes who is nothing these chumps can do to break a brother, homie. So we'll go into this next rider of a great time period, and that's going to be Alonzo Lonnie Clayton. Alonzo Lonnie Clayton. You can just look at this dude and see how young this young dude is. You see how young this young dude is. Clean young brother, man. So this dude ended up racing. I think they say he was like 13 or some shit, but we'll get into it. So he was born January 4th, 1876. He dies March, so a couple of months after his birthday, March 17, 1917. So he's a guy who probably was born with parents who were born into slavery as well. Let's go into this. Let me go. Wait, where I'm going? Oh, yeah, I'm going into his death. I want to go right into that. So see how old he was. He died at 41. He was in L.A. Yeah, West Side. God damn it. You're West Side black, man. So salute to him, homie. He got that in his spirit. So let me see. So he wasn't in RLA, he's full of white folks. So let me see his death. Where's his death? So he lived his last years in California. Says where he worked as a hotel bellhop. Says he died at age 41. Says on March 17, 1917, of a chronic pulmonary tuberculosis. Says he is buried at Evergreen Cemetery in Los Angeles. Alonzo Clayton's accomplishments in racing were recognized by the Arkansas Sports Hall of Fame. Says with his induction. What's up, Jashawn? Salute, bro. Says with his induction in 2012. So let me see what this pulmonary tuberculosis is. They call it the white death. See, white folks won't leave us black folks alone. You even jumping into the system of this black man. Also known as, what is that, calorical, or how do you say this word? Says as the white death. Says historically as consumption is a contagious disease. Says usually caused by mycobacterium tuberculosis. Man, any of y'all with this shit, keep your ass to yourself. Stay away. And how do you recognize this shit? They say this shit contagious. How do you pass that shit? Says tuberculosis generally affects the lungs. Says, but it can also affect other parts of the body. Most infections show no symptoms. Damn, you don't even know it. Oh, man. Says in which case it is known as inactive, says, or latent tuberculosis. Small portions of latent infection progress to active disease, says that if left untreated, says can be fatal. So he probably didn't know it, or he probably didn't have the health care to get it treated. Typical symptoms of active tuberculosis are chronic cough, says with blood containing mucus, fever, sweat, and weight loss. Any of y'all coughing like that, you got it. Oh, you dying, homie. You got the white death. I know some of y'all fools listen to this is coughing like this, man. You got the white death. Says infections of other organs, says can cause a wide range of symptoms. Man, tuberculosis is spread from one. Oh, wait, a TB shot that you take before you go to school. That's right. Tuberculosis can spread from one person to the next through, oh, you stanky mouth mother effers spreading it through the air. Damn, boy, these diseases, man. And Trump want to cut the CDC. See, it always go back to this dummy. That's why I'm doing this shit, to go back to this dumbass president. Oh, man, damn, tuberculosis like that. I remember you used to take that tuberculosis shot and we didn't have, you know, when they start really making us take that shit, they really start making us take tuberculosis in school. I remember as we start getting more and more of the immigrants coming over here. And especially in school, the more the Koreans are starting to come in the country, the more like people coming in from Asia was coming here, and the more that people from out of Mexico start coming here, they really started making them take that shit. They really started making them take it in them schools. And then, so let's go back into it. And the fact that kids just carry a lot of shit. So it can spread from one person to the next, says when people who have active TB, says in their lungs cough, spit. See, that's why people trip about people coughing. You don't let people cough on you. And now you really don't let them do it because of the damn COVID virus, man. God dang it. All right, let's go back to the story at hand. So that's what he died from. He died from the white death as a black man born post-slavery. So he was an American jockey, says in the Thoroughbred Racing, described by author Edward Hodling, says is one of the great riders of the New York circuit all through the 1890s, says and who holds the records as the youngest jockey to ever win the Kentucky Derby. He ran Kentucky Derby at, I think they're going to put 15 or something. I think he started racing at 13 and won that shit at 15. This is how badass these dudes was. These were some badass dudes, and it's in their genetics. Says an American or Black American, not no African American, Black American, says Lonnie Clayton, says most likely born in Mississippi. Most likely, they don't really know. Says on January 4th, 1876. Says which is the date of birth. Says in place of birth. Says that are given on his death certificate. He is one of 9 children, says of Robert and Evelyn Clayton. Says at age 10, his family moved to North Little Rock, Arkansas. Says where he attended school. So imagine he went attended an all black school. These wasn't no integrated schools. These are a black school was a school housed in a building to where you have all the kids. You have teenagers in here with little tiny kids and one classroom, one whiteboard, and these black teachers had to make the most do of what they had. Now the white schools had all type of different classrooms. They segmented the schools by grades. The black kids had some old ass kid who couldn't read for shit. He read at a little kid level and shit. And that's why you look back upon time, even with some people's grandfathers, even if you're born in the 80s and stuff, you'll notice that a lot of older people were illiterate. All right, so continue on. A lot of them said, F this school. I ain't sitting there with these little ass kids. I'm about to go give me a field to go work, sell me a paper, shine some shoes, go do something. I'm going to join the damn military. Continuing on, at the age of 10, his family moved to North Little Rock, where he attended school and worked as a golfer for a hotel, says, and as a shoe shine boy. Oh, there we go. Boom. Right on point with history. A shoe shine boy to support his family. Says, according to Central Arkansas Library System Encyclopedia, damn, all you got the whole name to this Encyclopedia of Arkansas History and Culture. Says a correspondent for the Thoroughbred Records wrote in 1896 that Clayton attended school. Says that Clayton attended school and was considered exceptionally bright. Of course, he was bright. Your brother. Says at the age of 12, says a diminutive Lonnie Clayton left home. Damn, you 12 years old leaving, man. Man, a 12-year-old just bouncing, just shaking the house like, man, things we poor here. Things ain't looking right. I don't want to be a burden on my parents. I got all these younger siblings. I'm about to go shake and go find it. I'm about to go find a way to bring some of this bread in. I'm going to go around here with these older women. Let me stay over here with their house. Introduce me to this little underworld. All this other shit with white dudes up here paying for punani and not even doing nothing with it. So let's continue on. Just say what they do on Fig. All right, so at age 12, a diminutive Lonnie Clayton says left home, says he made his way north to Chicago's Washington Park racetrack, where his brother, Albertus, his full name, Albertus, says was a jockey for a prominent thoroughbred racing stable owner, Lucky Baldwin. Let's see who Lucky Baldwin is. Sound like a name a black person had today. Oh no, Lucky is an old fool. He was one of the greatest pioneers of California business, an investor and real estate speculator during the second half of the 19th century. Says he earned the nickname Lucky Baldwin, says due to his extraordinary good fortunes and the number of business deals. I continue on. Lonnie Clayton says was given a job as a stable hand and exercise rider for the Baldwin stable. Then following years, he moved east to Clayton Racetrack in New Jersey, where in 1890, damn, this is a young boy just moving here and there. Man, this is an adventurous ass dude. And imagine, the only modes of travel, there's no cars. There's no planes. Trains I think existed. And you either got across by horseback. How does this young dude get across the country from Chicago to New Jersey? Let's pull that up for a lot of y'all. Like I say, a lot of people so uneducated. I got to pull the map up. A lot of people don't know the geography layout of this country. So it's important. That's why I love doing the maps. I think maps are very important when telling stories, especially being that this is YouTube platform where we know people from all across the damn country. So all over the world who come on here. And let's see. Let me exit out of this one, go back to it. So this kid leaves Mississippi, goes north, where a lot of blacks are finding opportunities getting out the dirty South, because the South got too many ignorant, don't know shit ass, backwooded people got their ass kicked in the Civil War, and they don't know shit. So the black have moved from here, migrating, going up north, up here to Chicago. This boy's 12. No, what did it say? Hold on. Did they say he was 10? No, he left home at 10. Hold on. No. Okay, no, that's 12. So he left home still. That's still young. 10, 12, all the same. He left home at 12. In the era where you ain't going to no airport. Ain't no relative riding you in a car. You got to ride with other grown ass folks and have to trust them. Hopefully, you ain't dealing with no psychopath, which they had them there, pedophiles, they had them there, and make it all the way up here and knowing how to, I don't know, you set up the travel plans to get all the way up here. What's that got to be like 800-900 miles straight shot up north? And then this kid leaves from here and then ventures off east to New Jersey, all the way here. So across Indianapolis or Indiana, Ohio, through Philadelphia, which is a wide ass state, all the way into New Jersey, which is right below New York. Which New York and New Jersey, the proximity is crazy. I mean, it's a trip to me seeing this. And I always had to orient myself with New York and New Jersey. So here it is. So it's right below it. So there's your island. So man, what a venture for a young 12-year-old boy, because this is his where money motivates this kid, and he had to get out and get it. And the times are so effed up in this country. All right, so continuing on. So he goes all the way to New Jersey. Crazy ass kid. So we're in the 1860s. So we're in the 1890s. Says a 14-year-old began his professional riding career. Immediately, he's successful. In 1891, at Morris Park Racetrack in the Bronx, New York, Clayton won the important Champagne Stakes aboard Bashford Manor Stables 2-year-old colt Azra. Let me see if they got a picture of Azra. All right. So on May 11th of 1892, says he rode Azra to victory in the Kentucky Derby, says which at the age of 15 made him the youngest jockey in history to ever win the Derby. Clayton and Azra follow up their Derby success with victories at the Clark Handicap and the Tabor Stakes. There's a black jockey. I'm not sure which one of them, who is one of the, I think he's I think he's the first to actually do it, and probably one of the only jockeys to win all of the three major races. I think he won in the same season, the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, and Belmont, I think it is. I think it might be this dude. So at Mammoth Park in New Jersey, says Clayton won the 1893 Mammoth Handicap, says, and went on to win the fall riding title at Churchill Downs, which is where Kentucky Derby is. One of the leading money winners on the East Coast racing circuit during the 1890s. He won races from New York to California. Says he captured back-to-back runnings of the Kentucky Oaks, says, in 1894 and 1895. The latter a year in which he won 144 races and finished in the money 60% of the time. Says in 1895 he won the Arkansas Derby. Says in 1896 finished third in the Preakness aboard the Philly Intermission. So here's an incident. It's probably an incident where these white folks that ran him off a horse. Let's see. In the 1898 incident at Morris Park, so on October 14, 1898, Clayton was riding Warrington, says, in the third race at Morris Park in the Bronx. Says, and both he and the horse had a terrible race. Okay, this is the other thing with horse racing. These jockeys used to be known for fixing races too. So I wonder if this is what he's caught up in. So as he was weighing out, someone said something that provoked the jockey to strike a spectator. Oh yeah, he smacked that hoe. Man, shut up, bitch. Boom. That would have kept me out of this being a jockey. I would have definitely smacked somebody in the damn crowd. So if that provoked the jockey to strike a spectator, says Henry Bellamy, says across the face with the butt end of his riding whip. Says the track steward fined Clayton $200. Says $220 in 1898, says will correspond to $6,578 in 2021 dollars. So Bellamy says a Bronx ice dealer sued Clayton in civil courts for $10,000. Damn, that got to be a lot. So $200 is equates to $6,500 today, or in 2021 dollars. Today is probably what, $6,700. So this little clown tried to sue him for $10,000. That definitely got to be $100-some thousand. I wish they would have broke that down. says for pain and suffering. Says in the case was tried in February 21st, 1900. Bellamy says received a judgment of 1,200. Yeah, take that little hoe and damages. Plus, plus plaintiff costs of $201 for a total of $1,451.98. According to an online inflator calculator, it says the judgment would be 40. Damn, that's still good money. Would be $47,189.87. That's 2021 dollars, which today's dollars probably what 50,000. Henry Bellamy's attorney says began to actively attempt to search for Clayton's property in an attempt to collect the judgment. Says, but each time he tried, he was unsuccessful as Clayton all but vanished from the racing circuit, says for about a year. It says when Clayton returned to the turf at New York Aqueduct racetrack, the Queens County Deputy Sheriffs arrested him on April 22nd, 1901 on a body execution for non-payment of civil judgment. Says just as he was about to ride in a Golden Prince in the fifth race. Clayton was put in the Queens County Jail, says in Long Island City. Says he was incarcerated for at least 2 months and was released at some point in mid-June of 1901. So this is about the time when things are about to change in this industry as well. He has 2 more years for they all but black folks up out of this damn sport. Says it is not known if he and Bellamy reached a financial settlement. He said, F this fool, I ain't paying a fool. This fool a penny. So here go some financial difficulties. Damn, I hate to hear that. Damn, I hate to hear this. So the financial struggles. Thing noted for athletes who come across good money. So Lonnie Clayton says early success had allowed him to acquire property in Little Rock, Arkansas, upon which he competed construction of a new home in early 1895, described by the Arkansas Gazette as the finest house on the north side. It was designed in the fashion of Queen Anne style architecture, says in the United States, and is today known as the Engelberger House. Says, I'm going to have to pull this up. I'm going to have to find this house. Oh, here it is. Oh, my God, this is beautiful. Let me go. We'll go to that house after we saw a black man built this house off of this money. Man. So and it's today known as the Engelberger House. And since the 1990 has been listed in the National Register of Historic Places. An astute businessman in 1897, Clayton also built a commercial building at 619 Main Street in Little Rock, says which stood until 1918. A lien of $600 was placed on Clayton's house in 1897. Says and 2 separate liens of $900 and $500 were added in 1899. In the 1900s, Clayton was sued by his older brother. Megan sued by his own relatives. Says who won the judgment of $511. Says another judgment against Clayton in 1900 says was $460.05. And then another judgment of $75. Says records also show that Clayton did not pay the real estate taxes on his North Argenta house and property in 1899. So this fool just the Adrian Broner with his fucking money then. Clayton sold his house on July 12, 1900, and quickly paid off his back real estate taxes, the liens, and the judgments he owed his brother and another Little Rock businessman. I guess his brother sued him because he probably borrowed some money, didn't pay him. So it is what it is. He also sold his North Little Rock commercial building on April 13, 1901, just 9 days before his eventual arrest for non-payment of the judgment to Henry Bellamy. Later years. What's his later years? Do we need to read this? Yeah, let's go into this. I love these stories on these old cats. Says by the start of the 20th century, says opportunities to ride for African Americans soon vanished as stable owners switched to using white riders only. Within a few years, African American riders, says who had dominated racing for centuries. Woo! Dominated for centuries. And who had played a major role in bringing thoroughbred racing to the forefront of American sports, bigger than baseball, boxing, all that shit. was just black sports. Same way you see black sports thrive in today's world of sports. Just greater athletes. Greater athletes. Says were forced out of the business. Since 1909, no African American jockey has ridden a winner in any major American graded stakes race. And then I'm gonna bring up a jockey in here who becomes the first jockey to ride the Kentucky Derby in close to 80 goddamn years, which is crazy. And that rider didn't ride into 2021. So it's like some recent ass shit. Or was it 2020? I'll pull this story up. Says as a 1898 report in a 1900 report in the Brooklyn Daily Eagle stated that Clayton planned to join other black jockeys riding in Europe, says, but no records have been found to confirm he eventually went there. Says Clayton moved west to try to find work, and was riding in Butte, Montana, in Memphis, Tennessee, says before moving to Vancouver, British Columbia, says where it is not known if he was a jockey or a businessman. So that's cool. He even got into being a businessman. Like I said, he was successful a while until he ran into financial issues. So let's go into this Engelberger house, which is his home, a home he built. Look how beautiful this goddamn house is. This house was built in 1895 by Alonzo Lonnie Clayton. Man, Lonnie was 15 years old when he won the Kentucky Derby. Probably got broke off. This is a nice ass house. Still by today's standards. Still a nice house. And that house could probably go for millions of, well, you probably can't sell it no more. It's registered. But still a nice house. Man, if you look at it from an architectural standpoint, all this stuff. That boy had bread, homie. Salute to Lonnie Clayton, man. Salute to a legendary rider, one of the youngest riders in history to win that Kentucky Derby. Let's go into this other rider. Let's go into Willie Sims. Let's read up on Willie Sims. Check his story out and get on through it. I'll get into the comments. I know I got a couple of comments, but I'm flowing through this. So let's go into Willie Sims. He was born in January 16, 1870. He died. Once again, these guys are dying like a month, 2 months after their birthdays and shit. Says he died February 26th of 1927. Let me go into his death. So he's from Augusta, Georgia. He died in New Jersey. New Jersey is probably where they were finding races. Let me see his death. Where is he at? They don't give nothing on his death. How did he pass? All right. Shit, his story might be so good. They said, fuck how he died. All right, so Willie Sims says was an American national champion jockey in thoroughbred racing and a U.S. Racing Hall of Fame inductee, says who won 5 of the races that would become a U.S. Triple Crown Series. That would become the U.S. Triple Crown Series. The going to Triple Crown is the Kentucky Derby, Preakness, and Belmont. So there you have it. So he won 5 of the races that will become the U.S. Triple Crown. Says he was an African-American. Says Sims began racing in 1887 and was one of the most successful jockeys using the short stirrup style, says which gave the rider a crouching posture, right on his neck. Says en route to winning the United States riding title in 1893, 1894. Sims won back-to-back Belmont Stakes. Says on August 17, 1894, Willie Sims won the first 5 races at Jerome Park racetrack. Says and finished second in the sixth and last race of the day. Says all 5 of Sims' winners says were trained by Hardy Campbell Jr. Is that a black guy? A white guy. So in 1895, Boston Post reported that Sims. So here they go pocket watching. It looked like. So hold on, let me highlight this. So the Boston Post reported Willie Sims was among the elite jockeys and was earning more than 10,000 bread, homie. So in the 1800s, the late 1800s, this fool was earning up to $300 and something thousand by today's standards in horse racing. This was big money, homie. Big dough. He had all the hoes. The best of horses. Mind, they didn't have cars then. So you go ride your horse. Your way of getting around is on horse. Look at the time. Your car was a wagon that your horse, a carriage that your horse pulled. Maybe he had the top on his shit like the queen back then. Man, these fools is balling. Look how time just changes. And a lot of y'all motherfuckers, and I hate this when you talk history, you don't know how to take your minds back into what times are like back then. No cars, no planes, barely trains. And I'm pretty sure travel on a train was expensive. Says that year, says he raced in England, says where he became the first American jockey to win with an American horse in that country. History. Back in the United States, Sim won the 1896 Kentucky Derby in his first running at the mile and a quarter, one quarter mile. Says on the Ben Brush. Says he repeated as a Derby winner in 1898. So he went boom boom, go back to back. Says aboard. What is that? Paul Pluden. How do you say that? Says before the advent of the term Triple Crown and the importance of U.S. Triple Crown Series. Sims went on to take the Preakness Stakes. Says a few weeks later on, a few weeks later on, a different horse, Sly Fox. He is the only African American jockey to win all three Triple Crown races. During his 14-year careers, Willie Sims rode some of the great thoroughbred racehorses of the day, such as two-time American Horse of the Year, Henry of Navarro, or Navarra, how you say that word. It says Sims finished his riding career with 1,121 wins, and in 1977 was inducted into the National Museum Racing Hall of Fame. It says he's frequently misspelled as Sims, but his name is double MS. It's not Sims. All right, so that's what they tell him, man. Salute to this OG right here, man. A true American. A true historic American, homie. Let's go into the other guy. This would be the last guy to win in the Kentucky Derby, and one of the last riders for almost 80 years, last black riders in almost 80 years to race in the Kentucky Derby, because you start having where racism, the Jim Crow era, racist time period rears its ugly head, where everything becomes segregated. White schools, white buses, white water fountains, white this, white only. We don't want to compete with you. You're too good for us. We need segregation. They make us feel so bad. The blacks make us feel so inferior. We so jealous of them. But we talk white power, which is the dumb shit that black people use. White supremacy. Yeah, supremacy. But y'all use the other word. I can't use the word that y'all like to use in highlighting white folks. A word that come out the South, that Negroes has traveled around this country from out the South calling white people superior and all this other shit. All right, so James Wingfield says he's born in April. He was born at the age of 12. They don't know if it's 1880. This is between the years of 1880 to 1882. Says he died March 23rd, 1974. This is a healthy old black dude. He lived to 91. That's because why? He took his black ass out of America. So shit. The other ones dying young. America is stressing the fuck out, and they dying in their 20s and 30s and shit. This fool left this country and died old as hell. Most white folks don't live that damn long. Hell, Rockefeller rich ass didn't live that long. Nowhere close to it. Let me see how did he die. Let me see. They ain't even had to put how he died. He died living good and healthy with the white folks of white people motherland. So, all right. So let me see. He was born there. So he's a thoroughbred jockey. Says a horse trainer from Kentucky. Best remembered as the last African American says to ride a winner in the Kentucky Derby, and that was in 1902. It's 1903. They say y'all black asses can't race with us no more. We don't want to compete with you. Go ride against your own black. Do what they do in baseball. How about you black people just play each other in baseball? We don't want to play with you. We're taking our horses. Like they'll take the ball. We're taking the horses. Winfield was born in Chillsburg, Kentucky, now part of Lexington, Kentucky. And he began his career as a jockey in 1898 at the age of 16. Says he was suspended for 1 year after one race for his involvement in the 3-horse accident, says at the starting gate. Says, however, he returned in the 1900s. So his career end up being short, being 2 years, he'd be banished from the sport. In America, his career in America, I'll say, was short, not his horse racing career. But you're going to see huge accomplishments from this dude. He said, fuck y'all punk ass fools. You niggas weak anyway. I'm going to go where the white folks are more gifted, going to Russia. All right. And that's true because Russians have beat American whites' ass all day, every day. Says, however, he returned in 1900, says to ride, thrive, says to ride, thrive in the Kentucky Derby, finishing third. Says he rode in the race again in 1901 and 1902. Says winning on His Eminence, which is the crazy name of horses, and Allen A. Dale, says respectively. Says in 1901, says he won 220 races. He competed in his final Derby in 1903, finishing second on Early. So that's major success. So he'll win it back to back. 1901, 1902, he'll win it. And then in 1903, he just finishes in second. He almost went 3 times in a row. So Winkfield, let me go into this, where racism rears its ugly head amongst the crybaby people of the Donald Trumps who want to push that shit and about to fail. Donald Trump about to get crushed off his push for racism and overhyping the world with whiteisms that ain't nobody fucking with. Especially you done been on the field, because you're talking about these early horse riders whose parents come off of blasted motherfuckers who look like Donald Trump and harbor those views of Donald Trump. So Winkfield was blackballed in the U.S. says after dishonoring a contract to ride for an owner by agreeing to ride for a different owner. Says, but he was offered a chance to race in Russia. Says where he quickly rose to fame. He won the Russian Oaks 5 times, the Russian Derby 4 times, the Tsar's Prize on 3 occasions, and the Warsaw Derby twice. The Russian Revolution caused him to leave the country in 1917. That's the beginning of where war would break out in Europe. All that World War I shit for you dummies who don't know history and all that shit. Because you ain't pay attention to school. You're too busy twiddling your fingers and shit, spitting balls around the class. All right, so he left there. He left Russia just because they had a revolution. The war break out. I think that's where who was that fool come to power? Would it be Lenin? Who come to power during that time in Russia? Let's see. Let's go into the Russian Revolution real quick. It only makes sense to learn that shit. I hate for my people to be dumb. For those watching it, we'll learn a little history unless you know it already. The Russian Revolution was a period of political and social change in Russia. This is probably the spread of the communist movement or socialist movement. So a social change in Russia says starting in 1917. The period saw Russia abolish the monarchy, says, and adopt a socialist form of government. Always smart and just knows his shit with your boy here. Says adopt a socialist form of government following 2 successive revolutions and a civil war. Says it can be seen as a precursor of other revolutions that occurred in the aftermath of World War I, such as the German Revolution of the 1918 through 1919. The Russian Revolution was a key event of the 20th century. The Russian Revolution was inaugurated with the February Revolution in 1917 in the midst of World War I. Says with the German Empire inflicting defeat on the front and increasing logistic problems causing shortages of bread and grain, the Russian army was losing morale. Says with large scales of mutiny looming. Says officials were convinced that if Tsar Nicholas II abdicated, the unrest would subside. Nicholas stepped down on the 15th of March. Ushering in a provisional government led by the Duma, or the parliament. Says during the unrest, Soviet councils were formed by locals in the Petrograd. Says that initially did not oppose the new government. However, the Soviets insisted on their influence in the government and control over militia. Says by March, Russia had 2 rival governments. The provisional government held state power in military and international affairs, whereas the network of Soviets held domestic power. Critically, the Soviets held the allegiance of the working class. Soviet. So they had the allegiance of the working class and the urban middle class. Says there were mutinies, protests, and strikes. Socialists and other leftist political organizations competed for influence within the provisional government and Soviets. Factions included the Mensheviks, the social revolutionaries, the anarchists, and the Bolsheviks, says a far left party led by Vladimir Lenin. So that's who I'm looking for. Lenin, the old big head motherfucker with the George Jefferson. So he ended up being, wasn't Lenin the leader? Lenin was the leader in the beginning of, no, he not World War II. He is. Stalin comes into power after that shit. So Stalin comes into power after that in World War II. So it's Lenin. All right, so let's go back. That's all I really wanted to read. I want to read on who that leader was. I was thinking Stalin, but it was actually Lenin. All right, so continuing on. So let me see. So that's why he left Russia, because of the revolution. Only makes sense to read that. It says, and he moved to France, says, where he resumed racing, scoring numerous wins, including the Prix du President de la République. Says the Grand Prix de la, I'm not reading this French shit. I can't pronounce their words. D'Avril and Prix Eugene Adams says he retired as a jockey at the age of 50, having won more than 2,500. Damn, he raced all the way into 50. Damn, this fool had to be in great shape. Riding a fast ass horse at 50, man. But that's all they know. 2,500 races, says then began a second successful career as a horse trainer. Homie, salute. That's why he lived for all them years. He was rich, homie. Wingfield lived on a farm, says Wingfield lived on a farm near the Hippodrome des Maisons. I don't know how you say these words, on the outskirts of Paris. He remained there until fleeing the German occupation of France. See, a lot of y'all didn't know that the Germans had also occupied France. They all at the damn Eiffel Tower and all that other shit. So he fled there during War II. Said, I love you white folks, but this ain't got shit to do with me. I'm out. Now, so he says, says after the war, says he eventually returned to the farm at says that, how you say, the Maisons Lafite, I can't say that. It says where he lived until his death on March 23rd, 1974. Man, what a life, homie. What a life. Says while he was treated with respect in Europe, segregation still ruled American society. When Sports Illustrated says invited Wingfield to a reception at the Brown Hotel in Louisville in 1961, he was told he could not enter the front door. Nigga gotta kick that motherfucking front door in and say, hey, bitch, I'm here for a reception. Fuck you hoes. This is why gangs are important. This is why the formulation of Bloods and Crips have become such an important time period in this nation, the Black Panthers, but not this punk shit. You see idiotic motherfuckers who claim to be Bloods and Crips currently and shit, who have no understanding of anything in history. And what's the importance of it? Because most motherfuckers come from their parents being crackheads and alcoholics while they carrying these motherfuckers. And so the communities be fucked up. That's really one of the damages to the community. I can go into another topic on that shit. Why these motherfuckers who claim gangs and all that shit is so fucked up. All right, so continued on. So this black dude, so successful, come to a reception, told he can't go to the front door. Now I would have rolled a thoroughbred through that fucking front door. Who fuck your white ass talking to? All right, let's continue on. Says he was admitted after the magazine explained that he was an invited guest. Wingfield made an appearance at the Kentucky Derby, says that year, to celebrate 60 years since his historic victories. I wouldn't have went to that shit. I would not have went to that shit, especially with the direction or the major shift that this industry took. I would have said fuck them. And it says in 2004, says he was inducted posthumously. I always say that. I know I say that wrong. Worse, I like calling the word posthumous. How do I say posthumously, whatever the word. I say posthumous. That's the word I'm a coin. Y'all know what I'm saying. Posthumously, says into the National Museum of Racing and Hall of Fame. Says the Jimmy Wingfield Stakes at the Aqueduct Racetrack is run in his honor. Salute to that, man. These motherfuckers is the motherfucking certified G's of the sports world. Let's go into this next one with one of the return of a black person making it in the rankings in the Kentucky Derby, which happened almost 80 years after the fact. So this brother who is currently living, he's 53. And I think, when did he hit the track? He hit the Kentucky Derby was that 2003? Let me see when they put that. Oh no, it was 2021, I believe. Oh wait, no, 2000. That was the year 2000, which is crazy. So this is the brother here. Wait, where's his photo? They don't got a photo. I got a photo of him right here. Here's a photo of the brother who we talking about. This is going to be Marlon St. Julian. So Marlon St. Julian. He sound like he from Haiti or some shit with a name like that, from one of the islands. So this is the brother. So he's a black dude, I believe. Oh, that's why he got that name. He from Louisiana. No wonder. No wonder his name is like that. So he is an African. So sorry, he's an American equestrian. Says professional in the thoroughbred racing. Says in 2000 he became the first African American jockey to ride in the Kentucky Derby in 79 years. Ain't that some sick shit? And maybe this is the reason why black people start to return to going to the Kentucky Derby. It got to be because of this dude. Maybe that because for a long, black people wasn't going to this bullshit. Now you see black people in there dressing like the way that new age white women go dressed in there, trying to dressing like they in the French Renaissance time period and shit, but dressing in these cloth. I go in there in white t-shirt and jeans, and dressing like them punk ass people. It says in the 2000s, says he became the first African American jockey to ride in the Kentucky Derby in 79 years. He rode what is that? Carroll says to a seventh place finish. St. Julian began his professional riding career in 1989. Says at what is that? Evangeline Downs, says where he won his first race. Says he was the leading jockey at Delta Downs in 1993 and 1994. At Lone Star Park in 1998 and at the Kentucky Downs in 1999. As part of Black History Month, ABC's ABC Sports broadcast "Raising the Roof" says seven athletes for the 21st century, which aired on February 5th, 2000, says and featured Marlon St. Johns and 6 other African American athletes, including Tiger Woods, Venus, and Serena Williams. The program won the 2000 Media Clips Award for national television. In 2000, man, they ain't getting no details into this. Wait, what's the details on this? What was the importance of y'all putting that on here? All right, so continue, because there was something that he even stated that he rides for. Hold on, let me go back. He dedicates his riding career for Isaac for. God damn, why I forget this damn jockey name, man? I'm getting old. He rides for Willie Sims. He rides for Isaac Murphy, and then for Jimmy Wingfield. That's who he dedicated his careers. That shit came back to me. I didn't have to finish researching. So in 2018, St. Julian's undertook many severe injuries after falling from a horse at an Iowa racetrack. St. Julian says was in the intensive care unit for many days after he had spinal surgery. In 2021, St. Julian became an agent, putting an end to time riding horses due to his long-term injuries from the 2018 incident. St. Julian's is the father of South Louisiana. St. Julian is the father of South Louisiana's known social media personality, 15-year-old Evan St. Julian's. Also, he got a kid who was famous on social media. And there's another thing, because I remember when I was as a kid, we used to watch horse racing. It used to be like jockeys that you'll see fall off of horses, damage themselves, end up effed up, dying. That's around the time you will hear when Superman fell off his horse. I want to go into this history about blacks riding horses, or this exceptional horsemanship that dates all the way back to the BCs being with riding in Africa before they even brought over here, before the slave trade. Says the Long Riders Guild's Academic Foundations, the world's first global hippological study. So he says, let him preface my remarks by saying that I have ridden on 4 continents, studied equestrian matters for more than 30 years. Says on a vast equestrian library, says and have published more than 100 books on the subject of horses. Given my equestrian experience, I believe there is only one way to describe my first encounter with the academic research done by by the Professor Robin Law. It was akin to discovering a new planet in the equestrian solar system. I thought long and hard before I wrote before I wrote that sentence. Moreover, I've discussed Professor. I says I have discussed Professor Law's research with long rider author and African exploration experts who joined me in admitting that the English academics had uncovered equestrian evidence whose impact and influence could radically reshape the way a major portion of equestrian history is taught and perceived. All right, let's go into this. Horses in Africa. Because horses here in America, horses aren't native to this land here. Horses were brought over here by Europeans who knows, they probably were bringing them from Africa and bringing them from maybe the Spaniards. Because that's always the story that the Spaniards brought horses over to the Americas. Because horses aren't native to this land here. They were either the Spaniards, I believe, were bringing them from Africa over to here and all that other shit. And the history go on. The first allusions to use. Oh, sorry. The first allusions to the use of cavalry in Africa relates to Numidian allies of Carthage fighting in Sicily in 262 BC. Horses were probably introduced into West Africa across the Sahara from northern Africa. Says the date at which horses first reached West Africa. So they're saying the horses were brought in from one of these other nations, probably from Sicily or something. They saying says the date at which horses first reached West Africa is for the present extremely uncertain. Says it might on the evidence at present available have been anywhere between the 7th century BC and the 10th century AD. Says what can be said with the certainty is that the horses were already established in West Africa at the time when contemporary Arabic sources from North Africa, Spain, and Sicily began to tell us something about conditions there from the 9th or 10th century AD onward. In the mid 12th century, says Idris, I can't say the name, Irises, says records horses in Ghana, says noting that the king went on daily tours of his capital on horseback. Traditions recorded by a 17th century scholar of Timbuktu says claim that the Kayamanga, the royal dynasty of ancient Ghana, kept no less than 1,000 horses in their palaces, where the animals slept upon mats, were tethered with silk cords, and had copper vessels to urinate into, and each had three grooms to attend it. And the Kanuri kingdom of Kenim says a 9th century chronicle credits a 12th century ruler, Mao Dunama, says, I can't pronounce his full name, and this is from 1086 to 1140, says with owning either 100,000, says, or 1,100 horses. Because some of the records are always jacked up with these time periods. Says horses were virtually never used in West Africa, says for drought work, says since in the absence of a plow, says, and a wheel transport, says there was nothing for them to draw. And let me see. So the people just rode them. Let's see. Horses were closely linked to the dominance of a warrior autocracy. This is about the equine kingdom. That's going into the Spaniards and shit. Our horses were closely linked with the dominance of warrior autocracies and with an economy based on warfare and slavery. When the Portuguese reached the coast of sub-Saharan Africa by sea in the second half of the 15th century, they found horses already established there. So there it goes. So the Spaniards were taking horses out of there and bringing them to wherever they went to. So and that does prove the fact from what I was listening to an earlier piece about where a lot of the young black riders during the American Thoroughbred Circuit, the Kentucky Derby riders and all that stuff, learned their ridership from they brought with them or something that was within them from what they were doing before they were brought here in American slavery. Let me say what's up to y'all in the chat and then get up out of here. Oh, hold on. Let me plug this computer up. Yeah, this battery held good on this computer. So Mark Sumner says since when are you a horse racing fan? Since I know that black people rode them, and I ain't got to talk about funky ass people that look like you about riding them. You see how I skimmed across? I did all this horse racing shit, and I ain't talk about one person that looked like your grandfather because your grandfather was here, so I couldn't talk about him, Mark Summers. So your family wasn't even here. So you shouldn't even be here listening. Sit back, listen, white boy. And then Picasso says, yo. And then Mark Summers says, blacks were in the stables working with the horses. Says you see this in old movies. Says they had a relationship with the animals. He talking about what you saw in old movies. You about dumb as hell if you use movies as your reference to shit. That's like somebody was bringing up, and I was listening to a piece about when they did the story about what is the movie? I think the movie's on Seabiscuit, and the fact that there's no black people depicted in that shit. Hold on, let me see. Let me go in there. I think that was the movie they were talking about. I think it was about the Seabiscuit movie, and the fact that the movie doesn't show anything when there was a dominance of black folks in this timepiece. Let me see. Seabiscuit, the horse. Let me see. This horse is. No, it's not Seabiscuit. It's some other movie. This guy was referencing another movie where there was a dominance of black people during this time period, and the movie doesn't showcase any of that shit. Let me see. Seabiscuit won in 1927, so they'll do a movie on this horse when there's a predominance of number of white folks in it. So I got the facts wrong on what movie that was. There's a movie where they're talking about. They moving, not Blazing Saddles. Says the movie. He's talking about Blazing Saddles, a comedy, bro. Boy, that's why I got to do more of these topics because I see that a lot of black people got no knowledge of shit. We just some ignorant. No, y'all some ignorant niggas. And he says, this fool using a movie says your fat ass can't be no jockey. That shit don't work over here, buddy. Reg can ride your mama. She a horse with old horse teeth. So, yeah, I can't be a jockey. The horse would be your mama. She'd be Miss Sumners. And Reggie riding her motherfucking ass on a mattress, nigga. Riding on a mattress. But if I went to your house, it definitely on a racetrack. So y'all live in old dirty-ass fields and shit with mud. I'll just draw some lines about the lane we're in, and I ride your mama. So I could be a jockey. And then Mark Summers says, jockeys are usually little Mexican dudes. Nah, they're usually a bunch of Spaniards. And then I know Boxer says, salute, good brother, salute. Mark Sumner says, jockeys don't make any money. Man, I don't know who told you that. Them little motherfuckers be having the little gold digging, common Melania looking broads and shit. Picasso says, I told y'all before, dude at my job says last name Churchill. Picasso, ain't nobody asked you no silly ass shit like this. He says, I asked him if he was familiar with the history of the name. And he said, yep, says he's a great-great-grandson. Says he's a great-great-grandson. CJ in the building, salute, CJ. Mark Summers says, who gets jealous of hearing all this black history and shit? That shit makes Mark Summers so mad and sad. Yeah, but he's too stupid to lead the chat. Mark Summers says, when I think Churchill, I think of Winston. Yeah, I do as well. That's because you're later in time as dude. And then Mark Summers says horse racing isn't a white sport. Says white people own the horses. Says Mexicans and Latinos are the jockeys. I don't know where you get all that Mexican to Latino. They do work a lot of the fields currently, but they knew over here. They knew like your ass. Picasso says the Pony Express says was a black man who was a friend with Native Americans. Says in Blacks Plus. He was first horse rider. I think Pony Express has something to do with the damn mail service, Picasso. I don't know where you get that shit from, bro. The Pony Express deals something with the postal service, something dealing with probably predates the post office and shit. Picasso says if whites call blacks cowboys, says and ninjas, says and now whites call themselves cowboys, says but not ninjas. How sway how? I don't think ninjas got nothing to do with cowboys or shit. And he says inaugural. Oh, that's probably when I was looking for the word that to use with the beginning of the Kentucky Derby. Yeah, you're right. That is the word inaugural. I think I said the debut or some shit. CJ says it was just an explosion at the Chevron refinery in El Segundo area. So that shit was always on fire. Man, I remember Charlo used to work at that shit. Says gas was about to be high as hell. Man, when Charlo worked at that shit because they had an explosion. I think before the year before Charlo or some shit. Man, I remember that nigga used to go to that job, man. Man, I used to always worry about that nigga Charlo, man. And then I think he got fired for some shit. I was kind of happy they fired him because I always worry about that nigga being at the damn refinery and that shit blew up. Yeah, man, I see that shit right here. Large fire erupts. Damn, boy. Wow. Hold on, let me see this shit. That's not good. Man, y'all better. I'm gonna go. Y'all motherfuckers better fill up, especially on this West Coast. Better go fill your car up before these greedy motherfuckers in this Trump ass economy raise the gas prices to $12 a drop, let alone a gallon. They're gonna want $12 a drop of gasoline. Let me pull this shit up real quick. Let's take a quick tangent or detour from it. So a massive fire erupts at the Chevron refinery in El Segundo, sending plumes across the South Bay. Look at that shit. Says explosion, fire rocked the refinery in El Segundo. Somebody fire if they not dead for this shit. Says on Thursday night, says causing massive flames that could be seen for miles. And I wonder, then you got to deal with the fact of harmful gases in the damn air. Let me expand this. Says, let me go down. Says the city, let me see, flames seen for miles. Says the city of El Segundo said that there was a fire at the Chevron refinery. He says, but there is no public threat or evacuation orders in a 10:10 p.m. alert. Video taken when the explosion occurred around 9:30 showed massive fireball erupt amid a loud extended roar. Says, but over the next hours, as the blaze died down considerably and the skies largely cleared, while a bright, strong flame continued to burn near the southern portion of the Chevron plant. Let me see. Shortly before 10:30, LA County Supervisor Holly Mitchell told KCAL TV, says that the fire had been largely contained. She said there was no immediate reports of injury and no cause for alarm for the surrounding area. She noted that officials would be monitoring air quality conditions and advised residents in the immediate area to remain indoors if possible. Yeah, you better keep your dumb asses inside. A lot of people don't think about the harm of breathing in this stuff. And then they be decades later wonder why they're on ventilators and shit because your dumb ass sitting outside trying to spectate shit, sucking in fumes. Like that, what was one video pissing me off where that electric car caught on fire? It was a dumbass black dude that sat in the car like he cool and shit. And I realized he probably about to have some very harmful health issues. Let me see. Let me go back down. So that's what that is. It looks bad in the initial explosion. May they contain it. But I guarantee it's probably going to jack up the production at that plant. And these fools going to use they use anything. They're about as bad as the insurance industry. Use anything to find a way to hike up a price. And Trump-like motherfucker who profits off of these type of things, high pricing conditions, they love that shit. And the Picasso, just like this gas over here that spiked up, went up, that gas sat at them prices for 2 months. That gas is sitting at the same price, ain't inched a penny down, ain't went a penny up for like the last, well, I'll say about a month and a half or a month and a week. Picasso in the Rolling, says Picasso says he didn't fall off the horse. And then it says tuberculosis is something you can breathe in, especially from being around a bunch of children. And then Picasso says daycare workers have to be tested every year for it. He says read the chat, host says, I'm telling you, bus drivers for schools test too. No, I don't want to read the chat when I'm focused on getting through the material. I can read y'all later. Salute to my cousin Deuce time. Hey Deuce, I gotta make a damn music channel. I've been on Cash Money. I've really been on No Limit shit, but they've been leaking in Cash Money shit into the shit. We gotta do a Cash Money No Limit Records live stream. I gotta make the music channel. I gotta do that. I'm gonna try to do it over the weekend. We gotta do Cash Money. Get back to the West Coast Wednesday shit. Get back on that music shit. But I've been on that No Limit shit, and I'm like, listen to this No Limit shit from the '90s. I'm like, damn, this shit still bump. It might never like Mystical. I'm listening to the Mystical tracks, and them mugs hit. Man, we got to do that one. We got to definitely do No Limit, Cash Money. We got to definitely do TDE, Death Row. Yeah, we got to get back on that shit. And Picasso says anytime you are talking to someone in front of you, says y'all are literally giving each other a spit bath. Yeah, that's the thing, man, with talking about the tuberculosis. You don't know if a person around you, especially dirty, stinking motherfuckers, you got to always treat them like they got tuberculosis. Not letting, like, being, I don't talk close to people. I don't like people being in my face or talk close. And then I also noticed that now when I talk, sometimes I be spitting. I spit like that white dude who I end up spitting on in the army and shit. And so I be flying out of my mouth and shit. So I be having to be mindful. I don't know if that's getting old or some shit. And then Picasso says, I think, or it probably could be because I'll be consuming a lot of water. I don't know what the hell that shit is. But I be noticing when I spit. I mean, when I talk, I be spitting this shit. And then Picasso says, I think schools back then were like a barn. Says trades were more important than education back then. Yeah, because across even whites and blacks, you had a lot of literate blacks back then and shit. Back in the early days, Box Scholar saying, "Salute to you, do salute to myself, Picasso. I know boxing." And then Picasso says, "I bet there were plants in the crowd that heckle black athletes, says to draw in the salt so they can drain them of their riches like Mike Vick." But see, even this is the other thing I want to say about the black writers. In the way history always tries to portray black people in a cowardice light and make it as if whites were so intimidating. So here in that story, you got this black dude smack the shit out of a white dude. That's why I be telling y'all black folks, stop doing all this empowering these pussies of society. Because it does nothing but fueling them thinking they're tough. Just how you got a bunch of these bitches in society who've been punks, quiet. Trump get on TV because he ain't gonna go in the rest of society, and you got a bunch of these punks thinking they've been bitches all their lives, but was bitches yesterday. They watched Trump TV, and now they think they tough guys. And then you got to beat the fuck out of them. And that's the same thing with any of this shit. You never empower pussy ass people, make them like they tough. Oh, when Jack Johnson win the fight, they gonna do this and that to black people. No, that's what they'll report to your ass. But you'll never get the report of these black jockeys going in there smacking the fuck out of white people in them stands. Yeah, get the fuck out of them. Them motherfuckers athletes, they in shape. They gonna whip the average shit talking motherfucker ass because the average shit talking motherfucker ain't getting himself in shape and probably has never learned how to fight in general. And then I know Boxer says the Boxing Scholar says salute. Light Skin Clear says France gave no resistance to Hitler. Was that why they lost? You might be right. They did cower and shit, but I think World War I don't think they militaries were up for it. But that's crazy when you look at that. I'm about to get on my World War II history trip again. I'm still on my 9/11 shit. I'm about to go after this, watch my 9/11 where they work in the POW, which the rescue people call it, or Ground Zero, like the media people call it. I'm about to watch my 9/11 cleanup video because I be having intrigue in that shit. Like I say, 9/11 piques the fuck out my interest like a mug. I watch this shit all day, almost on an everyday basis at work. I'll be sitting there watching that shit. Light Skin Cletus says Hitler. I'll be on YouTube at work like a mug. Says Hitler made the French leadership says go back to the trains where the Treaty of Versailles was originally signed and made them sign their surrender. And then Picasso says if I was a French person, maybe that's why the French strike all the time because they know their leaders is pussies. Like you motherfuckers bowed down to Hitler, had this fool all up on top of our monuments like he's Snoop Dogg in New York and shit. Picasso says, don't forget the whites that brought blacks here on ships. says we're eating them to survive on the trip. Man, Picasso, where you get that bullshit from, bro? Y'all gotta stop making up bullshit. Like, come on, we gotta stop the bullshit about history like that. Even with some black folks, cause we go into like get our disrespect up when we trying to talk about racist white folks, even saying they came from other animals or blurring in caves and shit like that. But no, they weren't eating black people to survive the trip. I'm pretty sure they brought enough food. They've been on them voyages. They've been going around the world, conquering lands. And the one thing you know to bring is shit to eat and prepare yourself. Dry foods, like no, that shit is false. Says on land, says the Indians had to tell the whites stop eating them. Says Good Friday says came from this. Says no red meat. Man, where the hell you get this shit at? He says on Friday. And his Steph says, be well, says salute to the chat family, says great live, says I'll go back and rewind. Yes, indeed. And then Picasso says, is the movie called Blazing Saddles? Like, man, Picasso, bro, you too old to not have knowledge of shit. And especially you're an older black dude from out the South, bro. All this shit I read is really Southern shit, bro. Y'all niggas out the South should be knowing this shit. But y'all want to be so glued to TV and modernize and want to be more like West Coast and East Coast blacks. Y'all forget y'all damn history, bro. Like, ain't no Blazing Saddles about these early. That shit is a comical twist on clowning racist ass white people from the 1800s. And that's a classic ass movie too. One of the funniest movies in history. And then Steph in there laughing out loud. Picasso says, damn, says that fire looks like the same color of the sun. Steph says says that was Gilbert's. Wait, what was Gilbert's? Is that the movie you talking about? Says son who stayed in the son who stayed in that Cybertruck. Wait, what are you talking about? All right, Gilbert's the fool that white dude died in Vegas. You talking about? And then SF says that damn refinery says provides 20% of the gas to the state. Says shit about to get ugly. Says and it already wasn't looking pretty. Man, I hope we don't get gas from y'all out here. Because I go to Chevron. I go to Chevron for my gas. I'm definitely about to fill up tomorrow because I guarantee these greedy motherfuckers by the daybreak, they going to be jumping them prices up. So that's the Chevron refinery. So that may even force the other refiners to charge more because now if Chevron production go down, these other fools going to see a spike in demand for their shit. And they're going to be like, well, we got this number and this. That's all they use numbers for. Let's see. Somebody do something. Crash a car. Oh, let's raise the premiums on insurance. Let's do all this other little fake ass shit to get rich and shit. SS says No Limit says went crazy. Man, I'm listening to that No Limit shit. No Limit shit is hard, homie. Even till today. I'm in there banging this shit I know I'm gonna be skipping through a lot of this shit because Mass P and them got kind of whacked, man. This shit banging, homie. And I never listened to Mystical at all, to be honest. Even back in when Still Smoke, because I never was no weed smoking motherfucker, but motherfuckers was on that shit, still smoking and shit. Steph says definitely No Limit. And then says their origins come from North Cali. And then says, yeah, says I'll never forget 9/11. Says very lucky I got to see and go inside the original towers. Man, I wish I would have got to go to the World Trade Centers. I always wanted to see that shit. Even the Empire State Building, which you didn't get to go into, which I got to go back to New York for that. Says in Ground Zero. Says but for a while, it says I always go back and rewatch 9/11 YouTube videos. Shit sad. I mean, I watch all that shit. That's why what's name Mark talking about sending me that video from that little clown ass white dude. Like I wouldn't watch that stupid shit. I don't watch nothing dealing with conspiracies, acting like 9/11 was an inside job. I don't watch that dumb shit. Was there failures in the intelligence community, FBI, CIA, and all them? Absolutely, because they don't talk. And instead says, but that happened. Says sixth grade, sixth grade, Mrs. Mills history class. Then you was in the sixth grade. Says history class says, and they put it on the telly. Says even went outside. Says salute the flag. Says moment of silence. Damn, you in the sixth grade during 9/11? Damn fool, how old are you? You make me look old as shit. And he says no, Gilbert. Oh, Gilbert Arenas' son almost died in the cyber. Okay, I don't know where the hell you bring Gilbert Arenas' son up. SF says Master P was in Richmond, Cali. Says for a minute. Says soaked up a ton of game out here. Yeah, yeah. The West Coast definitely helped put him up on that business side of shit. Probably hang with E40 and all them cats. Seen the way the Oakland Cats did it. Who's always had major game. Up North Cats have always had major game, major hustle up there. With some of that shit even migrated down to Southern California. And then Steph says Chevron El Segundo plant still working around the clock. Says, but yeah, says they shutting down North Cal shit. And he says, I'm 36 years old, fam. Says 9389. Damn, so I'm like 8 years older than you and shit. Dang, man, I'm getting old, man. That shit crazy looking at it. I see this nigga CJ in this month. I changed this nigga diapers and shit. That shit crazy watching people as time goes on and grow old and shit. And see these young niggas bigger than you. That shit crazy. You see little niggas as babies, and now the motherfuckers bigger than you. Shit, my son almost bigger than me. I'm like, damn, man, growth is crazy, dude. That shit, even when we used to be kids, I used to notice when we was coming out of teenage years and start catching up to people in height and all that shit. People are telling us, damn, y'all little niggas getting big around here. And then now you see it as you get older and watch kids with tiny little babies and see them big and motherfuckers driving. Fools got kids working. Damn, that shit, life is crazy. That's why I don't rock with motherfuckers interfering with it, trying to make shit hard on people, man. That's why I don't fuck with punk, pussy ass bigots and dumb Negroes. I don't. And it Steph says, youngest of 3 too. It says my sister 53 and brother 40. Then your parents went on crazy ass gaps. God damn, them motherfuckers. And they all by same mom and dad. Yeah, they went on crazy ass gaps. They got older and nastier. His brother is older than me and shit. So that's what, 36? What is that? 18 years? What is that? Boom, boom. What is that? 18 or 17? What is 53 from 16? Yeah, that's 17 years, right? Let me see if my math right. I'm a math genius. So let me try to do it in my head. 53, 36. Your boy is a math genius. 17. Damn, that's a cold gap. Yeah, your parents, well, they still loved each other. They got old and wrinkled and still fucking. He says having younger brothers, says who passed away, says already in heaven, says as a toddler. Okay, says, but he'd be 30 today, says if we're alive. Says, yes, same father and mother. Damn, your parents is old and still fucking. Damn. They loved each other. Shit. Unless they had the first one. Oh, that shit. So is you close with the older sister? She probably act like she your mom and shit. The older sister gotta be like a mother to y'all. No, but she's probably on the way out the house though. She's probably on the way. I know she had to be mad and shit, or having a younger brother. She probably was a mother like to your older brother then. Yeah, that's a cold gap right there and shit. But yeah, folks, that's all I got, man. I enjoyed this topic on this whole horse racing shit. Horse racing topic. Also looking back on even going to horse racing. Seeing the excitement of that horse racing shit. The fact moms used to like that horse racing shit. She used to go to the bookie. I remember seeing her going to the bookie to go put her bets in. And he says, yeah, they all close. Oh, see, that's cool. That's cool, man. That's a testament to y'all parents to keep y'all close. But yeah, moms used to go to that horse racing track, go to the bookies. We had bookies and that's all that southern shit. People with bookies, gambling houses. Used to walk through down Western to 105th to go get her scratcher. Mom used to be big on that scratcher. While she getting ready for a racing or get her a scratcher for the day before. So y'all don't know about that shit, man. Even y'all Southern cats don't know about that shit. I'm an LA motherfucker and have been seeing that shit just through moms. Moms would be at that horse race. That's why I think I like doing shit on my own. Because I watch mom do that shit. Even pops in them just do shit by it. They don't need a bunch of motherfuckers around them because you don't want people fucking up your vibe or they getting this shit fucking it up. So that's why I be doing a lot of shit on my own. I kind of always been like that. I used to like doing shit with motherfuckers. When people be on fucking stupid shit, drawing attention around them, I stopped doing shit with people. I never really did shit with a lot of people. Always knew how to move my own. Plus, my neighbor, like I said, when the day he died was the day he told me don't follow motherfuckers. Don't do what he do. And I as time went on, I noticed that shit. A lot of motherfuckers will lead you astray, lead you down the wrong direction. And also with me watching like these crime shows, First 48, you see a lot of these young motherfuckers get dragged into shit, doing shit before other motherfuckers. But yeah, moms be at that horse race nigga by herself. And moms be there all fucking day. Moms will leave early for that horse racing shit. Get her beers cold. Mom be have a cooler. Make her she pack food for that shit. Pack her fucking some church's chicken, some sandwiches, and wrap beer. Then we be in the house wrapping her beers in foil, put them in the freezer before she get dressed, get ready. Moms get all dressed up to go that shit and kick it at the racetrack. She probably knew all this history of these black racehorse people, and was probably definitely making bread off of that shit. And instead says the Foot Locker or shoe store says was the bookie back in the day, says for all sports. And he says Picasso says we got horse racing tracks in Grand Prairie, Texas, says in Irving, Texas. Well, y'all should be more up on this horse racing shit then. Instead says I used to watch my uncles, aunts, dads go to this dude at the shoe store, says, and hand him money, says get you a ticket. And then Picasso says Steph's, says right on Steph, and he says Lone Star Park, and he says Grapevine, Texas, says we have NASCAR. But folks, I'm out of here on this one, man. I'm out. Peace, folks. Catch y'all maybe tomorrow. Oh yeah, Friday. Tomorrow's Friday. You see Deuce Brandon gonna do a conspiracy show. But I'm out of here, folks. Peace. We might be at war tomorrow. Who knows? Gone.